Hey guys and girls, my name's Dan and this is
Alex.
And welcome back to The Forge. In this episode of Trust Me, I'm a Blacksmith, we're going to make money out of big pieces of bark. So, Alex is joining me today. You're doing your level 2 at the National School of Blacksmithing.
Yeah.
Yeah? You enjoying it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Great. Yeah, great fun. Yeah.
And you've come up here today to learn a bit more, do a bit more, something a bit different.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're going to do these today. We're going to make some railings. I'll show you some shots of us making the railings, and then I'll do a bit of a. We're probably going to do some speedy up stuff because we've got lots of work to do. And I'll do a bit of a voiceover and start talking about making money from larger jobs. So we've done the small jobs, we've done the medium size pieces, and now this is going to be like a 3-day job, and I'll go over that. Right. So we're going to get on, and we'll see you in a bit. Okay, so I did these drawings for the customer. I did them on CAD. It was Autodesk I used. And basically today me and Alex are going to be making these two uprights here. We've got to do the upright, and we then got to punch a 40mm hole in the 40x20 that we're using for the uprights. And then hopefully we're going to get this bit made as well, but we'll see how we go. I'll punch a couple of holes. So this is the stock we're using. This is some 40x20. Believe it or not, this is left over from a job. You work big stuff, you get big stuff left over sometimes. I've marked off the points where we're going to start the set downs. We're going to draw this piece down to 20 square. So we're going to go 40x20 and then 20 square. So you're talking 3/4 by 1.5 and then 3/4 square here. So we're just going to draw that down, and on the end here I've got to put in a 40mm hole. I think we've got to make some tooling to do that. So whether or not that gets done quite today, I don't know, but we'll see. And then so 40mm is 3.5 it is ish roughly. So basically we're going to do that today, and hopefully you enjoy it, and I'll pick up some points as we go along.
So here we are again for another Making Money as a Blacksmith episode. In this episode I want to talk about the smaller architectural work. I have a fireplace guard coming up. I think my sister wants one. She's talked to me a little bit about it, and that would be a slightly smaller project than this one. But again, this is only a very small job, architecturally wise, something that's probably only going to take a couple of days. And I'd just like to go over some of the costs involved with quoting for this sort of a job, and how you should try to quote for this sort of job. This is my preference as well. I mean, you see a lot of guys online talking about how to, well, not a lot of guys, Christ Centre Ironworks, for example, Roy, he says a lot about costing work, and to be honest with you, he does a fair assessment of quoting for prices and stuff like that, so go check out his stuff for an alternative point of view. He's quite different to me on his take, especially considering that he doesn't do much architectural work, but still he's a good source for information. He provides some good information, especially for smaller stuff. But anyway, I digress. In this video we are talking about architectural ironwork, and we're talking about smaller stuff, and quoting for that. Now before I get into quoting, one of the things I'd like to point out, I'm here working with my fly press with a special piece of tooling. It's my guillotine tool, and it's important to understand that these sorts of jobs, these sorts of larger architectural works, they take time, they take manpower. So I've got Alex here from the college. He's given me a hand to do this job. He's in his 2nd year of blacksmithing, and to be honest, taking advantage of students is good for me, because as a fairly new business compared to some of my competitors in the area, taking advantage of students who want to learn something, you know, I pay them their fuel to get up if they drive and stuff, or pick them up, but they don't always get paid for the work they do because they're on experience. So that's one way I can save a bit of money to make me more competitive. I've also got the power hammer here, and you saw the fly press and lots of tooling, and you're going to see Alex in a second. He's going to come up with a stop block for the Massey, for the power hammer. That's going to speed me up and help me be more effective. But if you were having to draw this out by hand or with a striker, this could take up to a day to do, whereas it takes me about 20 minutes to do. So it's something that's It's something you should take note of when you're making these sorts of projects. Be aware of the costs of manufacturing. The cost of manufacturing this product is that I needed Alex's help because they're quite long pieces. Not only are they quite long pieces, but they're quite complicated. And having someone who can you know, who's a striker, who can help me, allows me. You'll see it later on. He'll be holding the bar whilst I'm punching holes and so on and so forth. Allows me the ability to work more efficiently, and also being able to have sort of the guillotine tool, for example, is a good example of a generic tool that allows me the ability to sort of work more effectively, making special tools for that. You'll see later when we come to punch the bigger holes that the generic tooling isn't so necessary there. I had to make an actual piece of tooling for this job. That costs money, it takes time. So in all, you have to remember those elements when you're costing for these sorts of jobs. And okay, so for punching the larger holes, there's a cost involved in there, and that was a time cost more than actual expense, so like a physical outlay. Yes, okay, there's a bit of material, but it was more a time cost. So for me, I lost a bit of money in time, whereas for someone who needs a fly press, the first time you use a job, you might want to try and factor in costing for that fly press or power hammer or whatever it is that you need, or jig that you might have to make, or you know, so on and so forth. There's lots of things that may add costs onto your job if it's the first time you're doing something, whereas this punch, for example, that I'm using now is a generic tool that I use quite a lot, so it's already costed into the price of the job because it's, you know, sort of a bog standard tool. I hope that makes sense. It made sense in my head. But you'll see what I'm talking about when I'm talking about non-generic tooling in a minute when we go to punch the slightly larger holes. But so here you'll see me and Alex just punching this hole through, and I'm using a drift here that's set up to the right size. So this is 16mm drift.
Okay, so me and Alex have drawn out those bars and punched a couple of holes, and we're sort of in the process of where punch a couple of holes, let something cool down, punch a hole, let something cool down, and so on and so forth. And we're also making some tooling to do the big 30mm hole, and I've had to draw down some stock. So this is drive shaft, so I've drawn it down to 30mm round. One half of this is going to become a drift, or like a, to size the hole, and the other piece is going to become a slitting punch that kind of looks a bit like a chisel, like a really overweight chisel. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to make this into the slitting punch and the drift, and then we're going to have a go. We're going to do a test first. I'm going to cut another piece of 20 by 40 off and do a bit of a test. So I'm going to get on with that now. Here you are, Alex.
Okay, like I was saying before, this is an example of producing tools generic to a job. Now, this didn't cost me any real money, just time, and with Alex here, for both of us punching a hole this size in a piece of mild steel is a fairly, I wouldn't say mediocre task. It's a fairly simple task, but at the same time, it's something that neither of us have done. We're talking about a 3/4 inch hole here. Sorry, an 1 3/4 inch hole in a piece of 1 3/4 bar. So yeah, it's a fairly simple task if you know how to do it. You do need a power hammer, obviously, to forge out some of the tools. Otherwise, you spend more time manufacturing tools. And I had Alex here who swung a sledgehammer lovely, and he also, you know, manning the fire and doing all the blacksmithy things that are sort of what's the word that I'm trying to look for? Anyway, he genuinely really helped, swinging the hammer, looking after stuff in the fire whilst I was off doing other things like grinding bits up and stuff, and I couldn't have done it without him. Well, you know, he was a great help at the end of the day. And whilst that bar was cooling down, it was annealing, I was able to take advantage of the fact that these pieces had cooled down, and now I'm starting to punch a second hole. These holes are going to be there so that we can rivet on some second uprights, some 90-degree parts. We're going to put some square corners in and put some uprights in, and so on and so forth. But basically, the point I'm trying to make here is that costs can come from lots of different places, and one of those costs is the manufacturing of tools.
Right, so me and Alex made this slit and drift. This was a while ago now. I haven't videoed for about 2 hours, I don't think. So we made this slit and drift earlier, and we drifted it through to 30mm round, and then I realised I don't want a 30mm round hole, I want a 40mm round hole. But this sort of deformed the hole a little bit, it came out a bit square, but then when we drifted it out to 40mm, we got ourselves one of these. So I'm quite pleased with how it's come out. So the next thing that we're going to do now is we're going to do them on the ends of the bars, because this came out real good, first attempt. We're going to call it a night after that, so we've got 2 to do. Hopefully it's going to go okay.
So another cost that can occur, which quite often catches people out, is on the installation side of these projects, and these are going to get fitted. They go up a small set of 2 steps. The bottom part is going to have a hole dug in the ground and then concreted in, and then the top part is going to be have a plate and be bolted down to a slate patio-esque thing. Now, when I did some of my first jobs, I was caught out because I didn't take into consideration things that can go wrong whilst on site. And one of the things that had happened to me was I was fitting in a set of gates across a lady's driveway, checked one side of the driveway to see what was under the ground, found a little bit of concrete and thought, well, I'm going to get away with this, and then on digging the opposite side, I found that the builders who'd ever built the house had either chucked the remainder of the concrete that they had, or they had a problem and they had to level something out for some reason, and therefore there was a considerable amount of concrete, which meant that I had to hire a Hilti jackhammer to break all this concrete out before I could put my post in, and also a time cost, the time of getting the jackhammer and the time to do the drilling and so on and so forth. Now, that had a cost implication that I hadn't factored in, and because I hadn't told the lady when I did the job, unfortunately I couldn't recoup those costs, so I had to swallow them myself. Now, they're things you need to remember when you're out, when you're quoting for a job, to tell the customer that this could, if something goes wrong, for example, there may be an additional cost if their tools have to be hired, so on and so forth. And another thing that you guys need to be made aware of is the fact that if you're going to make and produce a product and then fit it on site, you could break something on site, which is a common occurrence, and you need insurance to cover you for this. And if the product itself breaks later on in life and injures someone, you also need insurance to cover you for this. So this is product liability and personal liability insurance. And I think a lot of people forget about this. You're out on site, you're fitting something breaks, who's going to pay for that? Well, if you have the money to pay for it, that's fine. But that's what insurance is there for. A, it protects you as a craftsperson, and B, it protects your customer so that they get a good job if you do break something. Also, you have to remember is if you make something, anything in fact, so say you made a bottle opener and that bottle opener broke and hurt someone, you are liable. So you should really have insurance in place for something like that as well. Now, if you are starting out as a blacksmith and you want to get into architectural ironwork and you're in the UK, a good way to get insurance to start with very cheaply is with Artist Newsletter. They're an online magazine and they offer free insurance as part of their subscription. So I think it's about £40 a year.
So it's going to take about 3 days to finish this in total. You're coming back up tomorrow, aren't you, Alex?
Yes.
A bit?
Yeah.
Cool. Good. Have you enjoyed today?
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Good.
Thanks
Good.
for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And anyone else, I extend the offer if anyone's keen to come up and give us a hand, or they want to do something up here, like. So they've come out lovely, and we did a bit of messing around with the old slitter and the drift, didn't we? We had a bit of a test run, and Alex has had a great idea, and he reckons, because we made bottle openers this morning as a bit of a tester, because I haven't seen Alex forge before, and I thought it'd be interesting, and he said this kind of looks like the bottle opener process.
Yeah.
If this video gets 50 comments, me and Alex will make this into a giant bottle opener and do something hilarious with it.
Yeah.
So
just snap the necks off the bottle.
Cool, okay. So thank you for joining me and Alex today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, to remember to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you are a subscriber, are you a subscriber?
I am.
If you are a subscriber, remember to ring that bell for notifications. It's a little bell next to the subscribe button. And that will give you information of every time I make a video or I put a post up in the community thingy thing, which I'm trying to do more of. That would be cool because that does help. Chuck your comments down below. And I think that's everything. This is probably only going to be a 2-part, and then I'll do like a hammer time at the end when we go to install it and finish it off and stuff like that. But that's everything. So I'll leave a link to the video up here for the first how to make money as a blacksmith. I'll chuck one down here. It's probably going to be over my face. That is my Patreon, and down there is how you subscribe. Thank you for joining us, guys. See you later. Bye bye. Well done.